Guru Brahma, Guru Vishnu, Guru Devo Maheshwara, Guru Deva Param Brahma, Tasmai Shri Chinmayam Vyapiyat Sarvam Trailokyam Sacharacharam Tatpadam Darshitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Om Shri Chinmaya Sat Gurave Namaha. Om Shri Chinmaya Sat Gurave Namaha. Om Shri Chinmaya Sat Gurave Namaha. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hariam. To see clearly the consequences of our actions, the rishis of the Upanishads can be quite direct. And some parts of the Upanishad can be quite poetic, but here we see in this last verse where a life that is not lived in attempt to evolve is seen equivalent as a suicide, in the sense that it's so colossally wasteful. Like we have something so incredibly precious, and then to just waste it. Or even the sense of the harm that we're doing to ourselves. And often in the journey, we think, oh, tomorrow, there's still time. And when I didn't do japa today, no problem, tomorrow. Or we didn't understand a particular point, or we didn't center in ourselves before having the conversation, and that went really badly. Although that causes so much agitations for the rest of the day then. And then we think, oh, just one person. What does it matter? Lots of other people like me. And so we discount or we disregard where we haven't made effort. Even making effort, we don't always necessarily see result, but the consciousness of making effort, the knowing that there's a goal and that it has to be reached. When we don't have a deadline, then we're not productive. It's just the way we are. When there's a deadline and it has to get done, suddenly we get it done. And we become more efficient and the potential is brought out more. And when there's no deadline and we think, sometime, I'll clear out the cupboard sometime. And then years can go. It doesn't happen. Or we'll arrange that dinner, that reunion. Yeah, we'll do it. And we sincerely mean it when we meet the person. Yes, we'll arrange this reunion. And 4 years later, and when we meet them, and then we're like, oh, I shouldn't meet them anymore because we didn't do it. But when we say, I'm going to, and by then, it gets done. And even so much more in the case of our spiritual journey, because lifetimes, it's not 2 years, 3 years, entire lifetimes can go without us realizing it is like That's like so incredibly wasteful. So to now contemplate on this higher truth, we see the word Isha was said in the first verse, and now in verse 4 and 5, to understand exactly what is the nature of Isha, even though we elaborated it in the second class, the Upanishad itself goes into understanding what is the nature of Isha. I remember it today. Anekadekam manaso javiyo Netadeva apurnavam purvamarshat Tadavato nanyateti tishtat Tasminnapo matarishva dadati. So both this verse and the next verse talks in the language of contradictions. And this is because we understand that the minute we say something, our mind takes a picture. And also we do this thing where I know. The minute we hear something, I know. Whether it's like a restaurant or a person or a concept, and even a snippet of gossip. Like, what's happening, and then somebody says, oh, you know, whoever, Susan, yeah, I know. And we love this feeling of I already know. And so the mind, in a hint of a certain kind of concept, and we think I know, and we've decided, and then we don't listen. And so here the Upanishad uses the language of contradictions just to make sure, no, you don't know. And necessarily we don't know, because the minute we put a I know, it becomes an upadhi. I was talking yesterday about the boundaries. And then we lose the vastness and the truth of what it is. So there's two words, well, three that indicate here the nature of the self as being not moving. So aneka, and then ekam, and then tishtati. And they sprinkled all through the word. Aneja, ekam, tishtati. These words referring to the self as not moving at all. When ekam also, this not moving ekam has this sense of all-pervading, which is the theme in this verse and the next verse. And then, straight away, it talks about manaso jajivo. It goes faster than the mind. And then in the next verse, devata. How swift the devatas are, this truth, this self, goes faster than the devatas. So it doesn't move, yet it goes really fast, is the contradiction. And Gurudev and Guruji, whenever referring to things like this, say that when we don't know the background or how to study Upanishads, these can be so easily misunderstood, or just not understood. So it reaches faster than the mind can travel. The mind goes pretty fast. And and even more so now we see with the mobile phones, the message comes and something's happened in Hong Kong and I'm already there, attending to what issue needs to be attended to. And so quickly the mind goes. Or even in terms of imagination, suddenly I'm bored and ching, mind's gone. And where's it gone? It can go into an unreal world of the movie that I just saw, or it could go to another country, it could go to future, past. And this is faster than the mind. In fact, sometimes the way it's described is that it's already there before the mind reaches there. And that's accurate. It's already there before the mind reaches there, because the mind is traveling, and this is just everywhere. Truth is just everywhere. So no matter how fast the mind goes, It's already there. Yeah. The Devatas too. The Devatas with all the power being able to accomplish it. Wherever the Devatas go or whatever they're able to do, this is already there. Mm. When you study the Mahabharata, there's this lovely saying that everything that can be said, possibly ever, has already been said in the Mahabharata. And you think, really? And then you study it and really? There's no plot twist that doesn't exist in the Mahabharata. There's no concept of like, whoa, that's so intriguing, that doesn't already exist in the Mahabharata. There's no evil that already doesn't exist there, and there's no goodness that already doesn't exist there. And just any kind of imagination or power that you want to conjure up already exists there. And here we are thinking we're living our lives like, oh, I have such a great novel idea. I'm thinking out of the box, but it was already there. Centuries ago. And so in our excitement of newness and creating and power and discovering, and even just the very word discovering, it was there and we uncovered. And so that sense of it's just always there. And then all movement, because our mind is moving, is in this stillness. But because it's already there, when we reach that conclusion, we think, it came here. But the moving is perception. The moving is appearance. The moving didn't actually happen. Even me thinking the thought, getting to the conclusion, didn't happen. And then that becomes a bit of a stretch for us, which is why Upanishads are so subtle. Like, yes, I thought it. We really feel we thought it. I've understood it. And that's real. Me thinking it feels real. But in that which is motionless, in that which is ekam, in that which is infinite and all-pervading, movement's not possible. Like space can't move because it's already there. You can only move if it's not there, right? Like from here, I move glasses here. It wasn't there, I move it there. But if space is already here, how to move it? It makes a nice cartoon depiction to try and move it, but it can't actually move. So, if movement can't exist, what was thought again? Mind is flow of thoughts. Flow, movement. What is thought in terms of Upanishad also? It's that ripple. That's what a thought is, a ripple. Because it's sound. To have a thought, we have to have language which has sound, which is a vibration, which is movement. And go back to all-pervading, where movement can't take place. So where is this thought happening? Because thought is movement. Thought can't take place in truth. Wow. And here I am thinking all the time. And what am I thinking? Truth. Right now I'm thinking truth. The minute this class is over, I'm thinking coffee and work and whatever else I'm thinking. But thought can't exist in truth. Thought can't exist in all-pervading. Thought can't exist in infinite. But my thoughts are so real. No, they're not. What's real is ekam, stillness, all-pervading, infinite. Then where's my thought? Appearance. Just an appearance. All of my thoughts are just an appearance. And I have so many all day long, and I give them so much importance all day long. And we can have them. It's not that we can't have them. But if we see them as appearance, sometimes light shining on the wall and different patterns come, especially if there's water and reflection, and you can see movement. It's just pretty to watch. But there's no movement on the wall. It's just light being reflected. The wall is still. You and I both know that. Yet we're seeing these patterns moving because light is being reflected, and it's so pretty. We can enjoy thoughts. We can see them, perceive them, enjoy them, and know them to be appearance. Not think of them to be real. And this is what the verse is saying, right? When it talks about faster than the fastest, and it really, that's the next verse, faster than the fastest. It's our own mind. It's nothing elsewhere. It's not that there's a truth or there's a God, there's a divinity, and it's moving. It's just always everywhere. And then, again, this concept gets elaborated in the next verse, but there's one in the last one, Tasmin nopo matarishva dadati. And this one truth, this tishtati, this that is still, supports everything. This line, literal translation, is the air which exists in space, which holds water. I know that's a very long line for just 2 words of Sanskrit, but that's how it translates. Air existing in space holds water. See again, if we don't have background, then that what does that even mean? Air existing in space holds water. Although, of course, anyone who has any sense of science, and even without science, humidity, water is there in the atmosphere, and it's being held by air, and air exists in space. Very logical. And what's that got to do with Upanishad and it not moving? Any form that we perceive is created by water. And so, before students study Upanishads, they study Tattva Bodh, and then Atva Bodh, they study Viveka Chudamani, and all these details, this should be obvious to you. If you've already studied all of that, then you don't need to break this down. But we see that space is affiliated with sound and not shape. Air is affiliated with feeling, touch, but not shape. Right? Fire is the first one that takes shape. And water also takes shape. Our body's content, a lot of it is water. And so forms associated with fire and water. And all of that exists in air, which is in space, which is in that one infinite truth. And so just like movement is just a perception in the stillness of truth, form, shapes, also all being supported by that one infinite truth, is just an appearance. And why water? Because it's so easy to see with water. Water takes a form, even just if it's just a dropped and splashed on the floor, and then so easily the form can change. Pour it into any container and it takes the form of that container. Or even in the ocean, it's the ocean and it's still, then it's a wave and it's not still, and then it's an iceberg and it's solid, and then it's froth and it's fluffy, and then it's bubbles and it's pops, and all of it is just water. Just forms, keeps changing, and it's just water. Right. All of it supported by air, supported by space, which is supported by Isha. Right. Remember, the whole verse is talking about that first word of the Upanishad, which is Isha. And then, as I mentioned, this theme of moving and not moving continues in the next verse. Oops. Tade jati tane jati tad dure tadvantike tadantarasya sarvasya tadu sarva sarvasya bhahyata. So again, linking back to the first verse of it moves, but it moves not. It's far, but it's very, very close. And then that whole second line, it's within this referring to usually what we think of as close, this, and it's also outside. So it's inside, it is outside. It moves not, it's near, it is far, it is inside, and it is outside. And really the best example to be able to understand is space. Well, space doesn't move, but we've already seen in the last verse how movement is an appearance. But also, if we think of it moves and it doesn't move, we can think of it in terms of how we perceive it. We see the sun, and we feel it moves across the horizon. Okay? And ancient cultures would tell time by looking up. Where in the sky is the sun placed? And why? Because it's moving. It appears to us as though the sun is moving, but we also know it doesn't move. Or sometimes sitting in a vehicle, a plane, a car, we can be sitting very still. Often we don't, but we could potentially be sitting very still in the car or the plane, and the car's moving, so we're not moving, but we're moving. Something's moving, something's not moving. The appearance is moving. The truth is not moving. Or if you think about it in terms of if we are identified with body, mind, and intellect, body definitely moves. Mind moves. But that which holds all of it together does not move. So which one am I? Well, there can't be anything other than truth. So I'm both. I'm moving and I'm not moving. Okay? But the more I think about it and the more I understand it, the moving doesn't actually happen. But if I'm seeing the movement, then truth is everything and I'm movement too. When I understand there's no movement and there's only stillness, then I'm that stillness. Okay? I've always been that stillness, even when there is moving, but if I perceive the moving, then truth is all-pervading and necessarily that is included in it. Okay? Far. And this one can, translate a lot in terms of bhakti yoga, or even in terms of how we feel. Far. Right? Divinity is far. It can be physically far. Like right now, India is far. Himalayas is far. Right? Or sometimes just far in terms of our capacity to reach it in our understanding. Right? Sometimes people will listen to Upanishad and say, that went over, I'll attend your Balvihar classes, Swaminiji. I've really had people tell me that. Because this seems so difficult to be able to grasp. Or difficult, even if I grasp it, to be able to actually apply it in any way. Because it's not meant to be applied in everyday activities. It's sitting in the seat of meditation, experiencing stillness, perceiving movement as just perception. Right? Of course, if we do it enough in the seat of meditation, we can do it with eyes open afterwards as well. But introduction to Upanishad is sitting quietly with these thoughts. So far beyond my grasp, it's not making any sense to me, also gets perceived as very, very far. And I don't know it. I know it exists, but I don't know it, and so it appears far. And yet it's so close, because it's me. Upanishad's talking about me. I feel I can't understand it and it's not making any sense. And maybe in the distant future, maybe one day penny will drop and I'll get it, but for now, and yet it's me. And so it can't be far because it's me. Something like even if we go to the doctor and there's something wrong with the body and they're explaining it and we're thinking, none of that's making any sense. And yet they're talking about me. And physically, the example, of course, is space. Space is right here, within every pore of my being, and also at the very edge of the universe. And it's just one space. And this is a nice one to think about. Space can exist right here. I'm sitting in space right here. Space is inside me right here. Space is outside me right here. But space is also beyond the atmosphere, beyond the solar system, beyond as far as we think the universe goes, which we know is still growing. And space is growing is also an interesting thing because it's already so big. Like it doesn't really need to grow. And yet it's growing, which means, what does that mean, that space can grow? Because wasn't all things supposed to be existing in space? But the minute we become aware, space grew. And so it's nothing that awareness that just keeps expanding infinitely. The more we are aware of, the more we acknowledge things to be there. And even just fascinating to think that space is growing, and even just fascinating to think that the universe is so incredibly large, and even more is that's me. What's me? That which holds space and allows it to grow is here as well at the very edge of the universe. Still expanding. The fact that it's still expanding just proves infinite, which the Upanishads consistently tell us. It has no limit. Like to think space has a limit, then, and it does. Right now, our understanding of space, even though it's so vast, we think it ends at that point. And the fact that it's expanding is proof that no, nothing ever ends. That substratum, that truth doesn't end, and so whatever we're projecting onto that substratum also cannot end. Because if it's, the projection will just keep going infinitely because the substratum is infinite. It's close, it's far. This is also a wonderful thing to think about because we try to go different places. We're unhappy in London, so we move to, where do y'all move to? Switzerland? In Hong Kong, when they're unhappy, they move to Singapore. And then they come back 3 years later. Singapore has all the same problems Hong Kong has. Maybe a few extra, maybe a few that we don't have. It's close. It's far. What? Truth. And on that truth, we project. What do we project? Whatever. Our happiness. Which means our happiness is close and far. Our problems. Great. Problems are close and far. Doesn't matter where you go. So nice to think about these verses, huh? You can think about them in so many different ways. You can just think about it as me extending to all of space. Yeah. We can think about it as there's nowhere else to go. Whatever is here is also everywhere else, which is basically what the Upanishad is saying. Whatever is here is everywhere else. Whatever we want to go to get, whatever it is that we want to get, is here already. And so Pujya Guruji now doesn't travel, and his favorite thing to say is, there's nowhere to go, and there's nothing to do. And it's very Upanishadic, because there really is nowhere to go, and nothing to do. It's inside, and it's also outside. Again, best example is space. And we can relate to space being inside. Space being even within what we see as solid structure, right? Even within the mic or within our body, space is in. If you break up the atoms and the protons and the neutrons, actually very little of us is solid. Most of us is space. It's actually incredible that we made up more of space than anything else, and yet we look so solid. Perception. Just again and again and again, it's just perception. So space is inside and space is outside. Oh, we can think about it when we were talking about Isha, we said consciousness. I close my eyes and in that light of consciousness, I'm able to see my thoughts. Open my eyes and in the light of consciousness, I'm able to see thoughts. Because when I open my eyes and I see you, or I see the chair, or I see the cushion, cushion is a thought. Chair is a thought. You are just a thought. Yeah. Inside and also outside. And so these two verses have that same theme, explaining the attributes as though to Isha. And always Upanishad gives us pointers to meditate on, and these verses are really meant to be meditated on. We are whizzing past them in a non-meditative way, just to get a glimpse of it, and then the idea is for you to go back, reflect on, and sit in meditative, contemplative poise on whatever it is we've understood. And then the next two verses, so indicators is to, as though, describe this supreme truth, and here the experience of it internally. So if I was to describe something outside, the attributes of color, form, this, and then how does it feel when I actually experience it, is now these next two verses. Verse number 6 is one that's quite popular, that Pujya Gurudev himself used to quote quite often. Yastu sarvani bhutani atmanyeva nupashyati sarva bhuteshu chatmanam tato na vidugupsyase. Yasya sarvani bhutani. Again, this is echoed in the Bhagavad Gita, almost in these similar words. And see every being. Once I have been able to bathe the world in Isha, Isavasya idagam sarvam, then the experience is, yastu sarvani bhutani, I see all beings as the self. Atmanye panipashyati. The seeing is the pashyanti. Sarva bhuteshu chatmanam. So I see all beings as the self, and then the second line, I see all beings as inside the self. So every first line, when I look and I see all beings, I see the self in all beings. Second line, I see all beings in the self. And when I said Gurudev quoted this often, you would have heard him say, the self in me is the self in you. And so it would be a slight paraphrasing of this verse. And then the last bit, tato na vijugupsyate. Having have this experience of seeing the self in all beings and all beings in the self, there is no hatred. And Isavasya Upanishad is the first one that we tend to study. It wasn't the first one to be written because when the Vedas are revealed, we don't know when what was revealed. And of course, knowledge of the Vedas is from the beginning of time, so we can't say one was first and another one came second. But in terms of the scheme of studies that Pujya Gurudev introduced for us, Isavasya is the first one to study. And you'll notice it's because it has these layers. It has so much depth because it is Upanishad. And Upanishad's the most profound knowledge. But it also has to do, which we like. We like having something to do. And then it can be so basic. And where we saw in the first word, ma kasya svidhanam, don't take what is not yours. Like that's so basic. That's something we can teach a child. Yeah. And here too, na vijugupsyate, no hatred. Like if I don't understand the self is moving, it's not moving, thought doesn't exist in it, that's all way too much for me, don't hate. I can do that. Well, maybe not do it, but understand what it means to do it. And at least I have a very distinct, solid instruction to follow that makes perfect sense to me. Sit in the seat of meditation and see thoughts as just a perception can make sense to quite a few people, but maybe not to everybody. So then what to do? Don't hate. But here it's not an instruction. We can take it as an instruction, and that's a beautiful thing about Isavasya. The way it's written here is not an instruction. The way it's written here is, this person who has this vision can't hate. And so if this person who's living this truth can't hate, then if I can't understand the truth, I can at least try and do that. Not hate. We have this starting with, I don't like. No, starts before that. Prefer not to. Right? That's where it starts. So let's say we being offered a range of activities or a range of food or, interact with different people. Prefer not to. And then that preferring not to becomes don't like. And then don't like becomes a little bit more intense, and then it's an aversion to. And then that becomes more intense, and it becomes hate. So if I say practice don't hate, yeah, we don't hate. Do we have these strong stands where I will not tolerate and not even consider? Yeah. I don't like? Yes. Prefer not to? We definitely have all this. And if we look at, in Hinduism is based on 3 pillars: Satyam, Ahimsa, and Brahmacharya. And a lot of our teachings will come back to these points. And we've seen so much on Sat in yesterday's class and the previous class. But in absolutely every Upanishad, this will turn up. What? Ahimsa. When does himsa happen? Himsa meaning violence. It's when I push. That's when himsa happens. When will I push? Don't like. How strong will I push? How strong the dislike is. And just that feeling of pushing something away is himsa. And so how do I completely live ahimsa? Is not have this feeling to want to push away. Because we can see, somebody can be very passive-aggressive, then they're sitting there and they're saying absolutely nothing and they're doing absolutely nothing, but you can feel the himsa. Because they are not happy with working with this person, or not happy having to, work at a particular time frame. And what are they doing? Nothing. They thinking. They feeling. And himsa and ahimsa is very much about feeling. Sat is very much, it just is. There's nothing to feel here. It is. But ahimsa is very much about feeling. Because it's the feeling that creates our motivation in how we think, and then in how we do, and even in the very vibe that we give off. So this person who's seeing Isha, who's understood Isha, living in Isha, and pervading the world with Isha, this person sees absolutely nothing that can be hated, because sees only me. Who's this Isha? It's not consciousness pervading the whole world. Please remember, that's me. I'm that consciousness that is bathing the whole world. I am that Sat that is pervading this whole world. And so we never hate ourselves. Sometimes we'll say, of course we do. Sometimes I'll do something and I'll think, oh, how could I do that? I hate myself for having done that. No. We don't hate ourselves. We just regret that we have to face a consequence now. That's really what it is. Hate ourselves doesn't happen, because very inbuilt is self-preserve instinct, and that self-preserve instinct is so strong. We live in very urban, built-up communities, and so we're not faced with the situation where we have to preserve ourselves. And so we don't recognize how strong it is. But, if somebody's stealing your phone on the road, self-preserve instinct kicks in. Maybe we're not smart enough to know how to deal with it, but we want to preserve. It's very strong. Self-preserve instinct is very strong. It's built into our DNA. It's not something we do consciously. It's just there in who we are. as proof that we love ourselves. We will save ourselves. So much so that when we really have to choose between ourselves and someone else, it's rather sad what we will choose. Because we love ourselves. And sometimes seeing it and understanding it for what it is, it's just a truth, right? It's just the way it is. It's great to know this. It doesn't make me horrible. In fact, if I know that I love myself, then seeing myself in others is the best way to love others. Sometimes we don't want to be that person that is selfish. No, I love others. But it's not the truth. And then that love won't have that same depth and can't last, can't be sustained. Whereas when it's based on truth, I can make it last. Now I know how to love others, see myself in others. And that is really how love works. And if you see family members, they're part of me, right? Extension of me. I'm seeing myself in them. An easiest example is parents seeing themselves in kids, and then they let the kid do anything. In fact, that extension of me is loved even more than me sometimes. Yeah. But only because extension of me. If I create, I make painting, furniture, I make whatever it is I make, I love it so much. I write a poem, write a song, I love it so much. And I've done, right? I've written lots of things. Sometimes I've written something and I can tell it's not really good. It's like, throw it away. No, we'll keep it. And because it's me, I love it. And if for some reason there's some disease, some accident, and there's some disfiguring of our own body, we continue to love it. Even though it no longer looks beautiful. Because it's me. Other person has to look nice for me to like them. Me? No. However I look is fine because it's me. So to love, learning to see self in others. We can see oneness in others in so many different ways. We are going through the same physical journey of aging. And we are going through the same emotional journey of wanting love, wanting support, wanting praise, wanting to belong. We go through the same intellectual journey of wanting to understand, make sense, find purpose. But take away all that, and who are we in essence? That's self. But even if we don't get to the level of self, we can see oneness in so many other ways. At every level of our personality, we can see oneness because it's there. We are more similar than we are different in every possible way. And we focus on differences because that's what we want to focus on. If we focus on similar, we'll see so much. To be able to see the self in all can be built up. But this experience of seeing the self in all, and it's so directly related to that first line of Isavasya idagam sarvam. Bathe the world in divinity, which means each person I see, I bathe them in divinity. What a change in our vision. if we see each person as stranger I don't know, compared to each person as divine, same as me. It's really a very different mindset. This can be today's homework. You don't have to go up and talk to them, but to have that conscious thought, divine, same as me. Whatever the face, whatever the size, whatever the color, every single person, divine, same as me. And, thinking is just a habit. What do we think about? Whatever we have habituated ourselves to think about. We think about food because it's the easiest thing. We've habituated ourselves to think about food. Or we think about some news show we watch, some hobby that we follow, cricket match going on. Habituated ourselves to think about it. My realm of existence doesn't feature. No habit to think about any kind of sports whatsoever. Why? I didn't make it a habit. Any thought will be a result of me creating a habit to think that way. And so if I create this habit, divine, same as me, in every interaction. And that's why we greet each other with Hari Om. And sometimes these are such beautiful, powerful words, and then we just use it to quieten the room. Hari Om. But actually, why are we greeting each other with a Hari Om? It's a Vedic tradition. It's not a Chinmaya mission tradition. Some organizations have, signature greetings specific to their tradition. To their organization. Hari Om doesn't belong to Chinmaya mission. It was the greeting in Uttarkashi where Gurudev studied with Swami Tapobanji Maharaj. That's how the sannyasis greeted each other in Uttarkashi, and so Gurudev continued that tradition. Om is the most sacred sound. Om encapsulates all of the Vedas. All that we are studying here in Isavasya is in Om. All of the Ramayana, all of the Bhagavatam, all of the Mahabharata, everything already in Om. And because it's such a sacred sound, we can't just say it. We do. But actually, before you go into the puja room, we shower. Right? Even before taking prasad, so many people who have grown up in houses of samskars, I'll be giving out prasad, and it's 1 minute, Swamiji, and they'll go and wash their hands and then come back and accept the prasad. We have this idea, right? Give our very best to Bhagwan. And so we bathe before doing puja, and we clean ourselves before we go in front of Guru, or before we take prasad, or before we do anything very, very auspicious. And so Om is Bhagwan itself. It's the most divine word. And so to say it, we say Hari first. Hari means Bhagwan's name, Lord Vishnu's name, but very specifically, still. It's the best word for Bhagwan. I'm very conjuice, please still. I'm very ignorant to what to give you, so you just take. It's my favorite bhajan at the moment, that Kal Raat Aya Ekachor. If you haven't heard it, please Google. Hari, just by saying Bhagwan's name, my mind becomes pure, and so now I can say Om. If my tuning to Bhagwan isn't that good, Hari means take. If my tuning's great, by me thinking of Bhagwan, my mind will become pure, and now I can say Om. If my tuning's not good, Bhagwan, you please take all the dirt away to make this Om remain pure and sacred. That's how we greet each other. Or even namaste, meaning I bow to the self in you. That's our greeting. It's supposed to be. The habit we are creating is, I see you, divine, same as me. And it's such a beautiful thing because I'm seeing you as divine, but I'm also reminding myself, I am, because I'm not living it, so better remind myself, divine, so I can behave more becoming of this Vedic cultural tradition. Seeing the self in all, seeing all belonging to this one beautiful self. Only when we see oneness can we see all things belonging to that oneness, and so that too is a training of our mind. We need to go, we need to do more. 7, right? Yasmin sarvani bhutani Atmeva bhut vijanatah Tatra ko mohaka shokaha Ekatva manupashyataha. Again, pashya is to be able to see. And in the last verse, it's to be able to see the self. And here it's to be able to see the knower of the self, which is the same thing. To be able to see that one truth. And then here, in addition to what has been said in the last verse, the addition is, last verse, the person who has this experience of seeing the self has no hate. And here, the person who has this experience has no grief. Moha, no delusion, and then shoka, no grief. Yasmin sarvani bhutani, seeing that which knows the self. In all beings, seeing that self in all beings, we come to be free of moha and shoka. What is moha? Moha can be described in so many ways. Moha is me and mind, you and yours. That's our whole day, our whole life. Me and mine, you and yours. And I don't know if it's as prevalent here, but I know in Asia, this new trend of gifting, everything's personalized. Here too? The name is on everything. Dal, soaps even, perfumes. Because you want to get a nice gift, something different, something unique. So now, what to get anyone? So personalize. And me and mine. It's interesting when we give these personalized gifts, you can't give them away. It's got my name on it. Really firmly establishing me and mine. Yeah. The spiritual journey is to help us to reduce these concepts. And sometimes the Vyahavarik journey is so good at reinforcing these concepts. Yeah. Social media marketing reinforces moha so well. I don't have a desire for whatever, perfume. And then they market it, and they market it, and they market it, and they market it, and now suddenly, I should get that perfume. And people are investing so much effort and time to make me have moha. Our social media feed, people are sitting at their desk, working 14 hours a day, figuring it out how to make me more addicted to social media. This is truth. You all know this to be. So many people working so hard for Google, making sure we use it. So many people working for YouTube to make sure we keep going back. How much effort being put for me to stay in moha? We don't realize this. Conscious, deliberate effort is being made by so many companies. Every product created, they sit there trying to figure out how to make me buy it. When so much effort is being made to keep me in moha, I have to make effort. Like, how can I not make effort? Their effort will win. Whoever puts in effort, that they're going to get the results, right? This is just logical. Of course, whoever puts in the effort will get the results. Their effort will win. And if we look around, we see people so brainwashed by advertising, because we're all buying branded things. We see people so brainwashed by politics, by so many, by media. Whoever puts in effort will get a result. If so much effort is being made to delude me, I have to put in so much effort to make sure I don't get deluded. Yeah. And that effort is seeing the self. Looking past name and form. Looking past upadhis. Here it's saying, Isavasya idagam sarvam. Look to see that sat. Look to see that chit. For many, that's too subtle to hold on to. And so every Upanishad will end with saying, just hold on to Guru. What's our effort? When so much effort being put in to delude me, what's the one effort I can do? Hari Smaranam, Guru Smaranam. Keep the mind centered in divinity. If that divinity takes the form of Krishna, Rama, if that divinity takes the form of Guru, takes the form of mantras, takes the form of seva, takes the form of satsang, effort has to be put in. Tatramo na shoka na moha. And it's this moha that creates all our sorrow. In the simplest way we can see it, I didn't want. What didn't I want? That perfume. Now I want it. Now so restless. Until I get it. And if I can't afford it, even more restless. Then somebody else gets it. Oh, ruined my whole day. All suffering comes from this moha, me and mine, you and yours. How often we think, why is everyone else's life so wonderful? Only I have to suffer. Me and mine, you and yours. And I have to work so much harder to get what I want. They just getting it easily. Who's this day? They'll give you a name. I've asked people when they've told me, everyone has it so easy. And I'm like, who has it so easy? They actually listed people down. Fortunately, I know those people, they don't have it easy. but they don't advertise their difficulties. This feeling, me and mine, you and yours, effort has to be put in to loosen this. Holding on to the one that loves all is the best way to be able to do it. We've run out of time, and so I'm going to have to pause. Although I really wanted to do one more verse tomorrow. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om.